So I had a little bit of an unusual first job after high school. I worked as a professional fly fishing guide in one of the largest roadless wilderness areas in the United States in kind of backcountry Idaho. So what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about that and then tell you a specific story from that experience. Being a fly fishing guide, you primarily help clients learn how to fish, showing them where fish are, helping them tie knots, getting them untangled. Do a little bit of drinking, a lot of fishing yourself, and you pick up some sweet sponsors, and those are a couple of mine. In addition to those kind of fun aspects of the job, there's a lot of work. You carry people's stuff for them, open their water bottles. When women don't want to go to the bathroom in the forest, you have to take them back to the lodge and all that sort of thing. And it's predominantly a job that revolves around getting tips. So like 100 or 200 bucks a day was not uncommon. This is the lodge that we worked out of. You know, we had clients from all over the country who had pretty high expectations of a kind of resort vacation where they didn't have to do a whole lot of work. In addition to fishing around the area, we did backcountry flyout trips in six-seater Cessna 206s to dirt strips. So that's a picture along the approach. These trips were camping trips that generally lasted 3 to 4 days. So we were out there on our own in the middle of a large wilderness in Idaho. The wilderness is 2.2 million acres, so it's a large part of Idaho, which also means it's a large part of the United States. And you're right out in the middle of that without any support or otherwise. On this particular trip, I was operating in the worst fire season in Idaho since 1910. And we had clients coming the next day, nonetheless, for a flyout trip. And so we decided that we were going to go ahead and do the trip. The fire danger wasn't too bad, so we went for it. And instead of flying the plane the way we wanted to go, we had to fly out and around these huge plumes of smoke that could be up to 40,000 feet tall. And so you're kind of going in between these big clouds, and there's all kinds of heat and wind. So it was a pretty scary plane trip. At one point in the 15-minute flight, you go up and over this large ridge and then down into the next drainage. And so normally what the plane would do is fly up and kind of clip the ridge and head back down. But on this particular trip, right as we got to the top, everything went silent. The plane started sinking tail first down toward the ridge for about 15 seconds. And if you've ever been in one of these small planes, they're generally really loud, so silence is a bad thing. What happened is that the pilot, who was about 65 years old, had forgotten to switch from his primary fuel tank to his secondary fuel tank. So he'd run the plane literally out of fuel and had to start it in the air. Obviously, he was successful in doing that. And so we flew back down the drainage and landed at the airstrip, which is pictured right there. Maybe slightly for dramatic effect, I actually kissed the ground. And the pilot, made a big point to say that wasn't that bad and it happens all the time, but I tended to disagree with him. Net, our clients came out. We had a good 3-day trip, fishing, caught a bunch of fish. The scenery was pretty good. However, there were still fires around, so it was pretty smoky, but we didn't really think much of it. We were supposed to fly out at 5 o'clock on the third day. However, when we wanted to fly out, the sky looked like that. So we could hear the planes circling overhead over the airstrip, but they couldn't actually get down to pick us up. So we found ourselves stuck out there for another couple of days with these clients from the East Coast who thought they would be staying in a lodge. So the only way to deal with that was to catch fish from the river and try to keep everybody entertained. But it was tough. Like, you're hungry, you're tired of eating fish. We didn't have very much salt. Like, it wasn't a great situation. But as I mentioned, being a fishing guide, you're always thinking about how to get tips. So I always brought a fifth of Jack Daniels with me on these overnight trips just in case the clients were interested. So on our last night stuck out there, I'd forgotten about it. I produced this fifth of Jack Daniels for the clients, and it's unbelievable. You've been stuck out eating fish and dirt for the last couple of days, and all of a sudden we're sitting there in lawn chairs looking at the fire, drinking whiskey and 7-Up that we'd brought. The pilot was able to come get us the next day, and he was pretty surprised by the good spirits that we were in, and we were able to make it back to the lodge no problem, and the clients were still pretty pleased with the results of the trip. That particular season was, after my freshman year of college, and it was the worst season in memory, as I mentioned. That's what Idaho looked like, and you can see where we were, just huge, huge smoke visible from space. And this is what an area looks like after a forest fire. Like, these fires burn really hot, and it's really intense. So what I learned is that it was probably a bad idea to be there, and the impact it had for me is that after my sophomore year of college, I wasn't a fishing guide and interned in wealth management in Chicago instead. So, thanks.